life not as a rebel or a misfit, but as a man who simply chooses to operate on his own frequency. On the surface, he looks like everyone else. He stands in the same line at the cafe, breathes the same air, shares the same office space, but there's an undeniable aura about him that makes people pause. It's not arrogance, it's presence. People sense it but can't name it. It's in his calm demeanor, his unreadable eyes, his quiet confidence that doesn't beg for approval. He doesn't perform for likes or laugh when it's socially expected. He doesn't gossip to fit in or wear ambition like a badge to impress others. And that, ironically, makes him both fascinating and threatening. Psychologically, Sigma males exhibit traits similar to introverted intuitives on the Myers-Briggs type indicator, often labeled as INTJs or INTPs. These types are independent thinkers, strategists, and deep processors. Their solitude isn't a rejection of others, it's a recalibration of energy. Studies in personality theory show that people tend to judge what they don't understand. That's why the Sigma male is often labeled wrongly, aloof, arrogant, antisocial. But these are just projections from those who can't fathom strength without dominance or value without visibility. What they call weird, he calls clarity. What they label cold, he sees as control. He's not avoiding connection, he's filtering noise. While society obsesses over alpha-beta hierarchies, the Sigma male rewrites the rulebook. He doesn't need a pack to lead or follow. He is his own system, and that unsettles people, because the one who walks alone doesn't just see the world differently. He makes the world question itself. That's why this man isn't for everyone, but then again, neither is greatness. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where we don't just observe the Sigma, we decode his legend. Number 1. He's arrogant. They see a man who doesn't chase approval and mistake it for pride. But detachment isn't ego, it's clarity. In a world obsessed with likes, shares, validation, and applause, the man who walks his own path without begging for recognition is often seen as arrogant or antisocial. But here's the truth. Detachment, especially in the context of a Sigma male or a deeply self-aware individual, is not about thinking you're better than others. It's about being free from the compulsion to be seen, praised, or accepted. Detachment is rooted in inner security. It's the result of having wrestled with your identity and come out on the other side, not needing the noise of the crowd to confirm your worth. This kind of clarity is rare in a society where self-worth is often outsourced to public opinion. Psychologists have long recognized the dangers of external validation addiction. It leads to anxiety, identity confusion, and people-pleasing behaviors that drain one's authenticity. In contrast, the detached man operates from internal validation. He doesn't reject others. He just refuses to be controlled by their approval or rejection. His stillness is not indifference, it's focus. His silence isn't arrogance, it's discernment. He listens more than he speaks and acts more than he boasts. To those who need constant reassurance, this man appears mysterious, perhaps even threatening. But in reality, he's simply free from the exhausting hamster wheel of trying to be liked by everyone. And that freedom, ironically, makes him more attractive, more magnetic. People are drawn to what they can't easily understand. His calm presence forces them to reflect on their own insecurities. They want to know why he isn't performing for the spotlight, why he can walk into a room and not feel the need to impress anyone. And that's the paradox. He doesn't think he's above them, he just isn't it with them. He's not emotionally entangled in the chaos of social approval. He sees it for what it is, a game, and he chooses not to play. That's not pride, that's power. And the world, used to noise and performance, doesn't know what to make of a man who's simply unbothered, grounded, and content in his own truth. Number 2, he's antisocial, he skips the parties, avoids small talk. Not because he fears people, but because meaningless interaction drains him. This is the mindset of a man who values depth over distraction. In a world obsessed with noise, likes, followers, and constant chatter, the Sigma male walks a quieter path. He's not shy, he's not rude, he's just selective. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies on introverted brain activity reveal that such individuals have a higher sensitivity to dopamine, the brain's reward chemical. What energizes a social butterfly, like a loud party, can overstimulate someone like him, causing fatigue instead of excitement. So when he steps away from social gatherings, it's not a retreat, it's a reset. He values solitude because it's in silence that he hears his clearest thoughts. And when he does engage, it's never half-hearted. He doesn't do fake laughs, forced small talk, or the empty surface level "how have you been" chats. Instead, he listens with intent, speaks with purpose, and seeks conversations that matter. Those that tap into truth, philosophy, personal growth, or even shared vulnerabilities. That's where his energy flows, and it's not arrogance, it's alignment. He's aligned with authenticity. He understands that not every moment needs to be filled, and not every person needs to be pleased. To him, a genuine connection, even with one person, is far more rewarding than mingling with a crowd that never really sees him. That's why he'd rather spend his night reading a book that challenges his perspective, hiking in silence with his own thoughts, or having a deep one-on-one with someone who truly gets him. Society may label him aloof, mysterious, or distant, but the truth is, he's deeply present in the moments that actually matter. While others chase attention, he chases meaning, and that's the difference. In the grand theater of human interaction, he's not trying to play every role or be liked by every audience. He's just there for the real scenes, the ones that leave you thinking, feeling, and growing. Number 3, he thinks he's better than everyone. The Sigma male's independence is like a spark in a dry forest. It doesn't take much for it to ignite the insecurities of the collective, what we often call the herd. In a society that praises conformity, obedience, and social validation, the Sigma stands as an anomaly. He doesn't play by the same rules, and that alone makes him suspicious in the eyes of those who rely on external approval to define their worth. The system, which thrives on predictability and control, sees his detachment as a threat. Why? Because systems are designed to manage behavior, and you can't manage a man who refuses to be caged. But here's the twist. He's not out to destroy the system. He's not trying to be superior, he simply seeks freedom. That freedom is internal, not performative. While others chase rank, applause, and visibility, the Sigma moves silently, guided by principles and a personal compass. His journey doesn't require a map approved by society, nor does it follow timelines enforced by tradition. And because of that, people project their fears onto him. They mistake his silence for arrogance, his solitude for sadness, and his confidence for rebellion. But that's only because they don't understand his path, because it was never built for them. Just like wolves aren't meant to walk with sheep, Sigma males weren't designed to blend into the crowd. They think differently, they feel deeply but don't wear it like a badge. They're calculated, not cold, reserved, not broken. In fact, psychological studies suggest that Sigma-type personalities score high on emotional intelligence, an internal locus of control, meaning they believe they are the architects of their own destiny, not victims of external forces. It's this mindset that allows them to thrive in chaos, while others crumble. And while most are seeking permission to live, the Sigma simply lives, not loudly, not recklessly, but authentically. And that authenticity in a world addicted to imitation is what makes him truly dangerous, not to others, but to the illusions they cling to. Because the moment you see someone living freely without seeking approval, you're forced to confront your own limitations, and that's what truly unsettles the herd. Number 4, he's cold because he doesn't wear his emotions on his sleeve. People often assume he feels nothing, but that assumption couldn't be further from the truth. What you're seeing isn't a lack of emotion, it's emotional discipline. He feels deeply, perhaps more than most, but his reactions are calculated, not impulsive. He doesn't flinch at every provocation or break down at every disappointment. Instead, he processes his emotions internally like a scientist in a lab, analyzing each feeling before deciding what to do with it. This isn't coldness, it's mastery. While others are quick to shout, lash out, or break down, he remains composed, calm, and intentional. Psychology calls this emotional regulation, a skill linked to higher emotional intelligence and stronger leadership. In fact, studies in neuroscience have shown that people who take time to regulate emotions rather than reacting immediately tend to make better long-term decisions and experience less regret. He's not avoiding emotion, he's harnessing it. When chaos erupts around him, he doesn't become part of the noise. Instead, he becomes the anchor. That's why his presence is often felt even in silence. People are drawn to him not because he demands attention, but because he embodies stability. When others explode in a heated debate, he waits, he listens. Then when the room quiets down and all the noise fades, he speaks, and people listen. Not because he's loud, but because his words are deliberate, they carry weight. This is the hallmark of a man who understands power isn't in yelling the loudest, but in knowing when to speak and when to stay silent. It's not about bottling things up either. He processes his emotions privately through reflection, solitude, and sometimes in creative or physical outlets. In a world where everyone is encouraged to let it all out, he's mastered the rare art of keeping it together. And that's not repression, it's refinement. His emotional detachment isn't a defect, it's armor, not to push people away, but to protect his focus, his energy, and his purpose. The world may call him aloof, but in reality, he's just tuned in to something deeper, something most people miss while they're busy reacting to every passing storm. Number 5, he's emotionally damaged. He's not heartless. That's a common misconception about men who value their solitude, especially Sigma males, those lone wolves of society who thrive outside the conventional social hierarchy. To many, his silence feels cold, his distance feels dismissive, and his independence feels like rejection. But in reality, he's not emotionally vacant. He just doesn't need constant validation, small talk, or digital dopamine to feel whole. While others measure their worth by likes, group chats, or weekend plans, he finds contentment in stillness. Psychology suggests that people who are comfortable with solitude often have a stronger sense of self-awareness, emotional regulation, and internal motivation. Solitude isn't a wound he's nursing, it's his sanctuary, his workshop where ideas are born, peace is restored, and purpose is recalibrated. Unlike extroverts who refuel through interaction, Sigma males recharge by withdrawing, not as a defense mechanism, but as a lifestyle choice rooted in clarity and self-preservation. He's not running from people, he's returning to himself. And this return is sacred. Studies in behavioral science reveal that people who spend intentional time alone experience less anxiety, are more productive, and make better decisions. But his quiet unnerves the world. Why? Because many fear the silence he embraces. They've never met the sound of their own soul without the noise of the crowd. His silence forces others to confront their own chaos, and that's uncomfortable. In a society addicted to distraction, a man who walks calmly into solitude is viewed with suspicion. But look deeper. He's not avoiding life, he's mastering it on his terms. He chooses depth over noise, truth over popularity, and peace over performance. His world may not be loud, but it's full. And while they chase connections to feel alive, he builds a connection with himself that no one can take away. So the next time they call him distant, stoic, or detached, remember, he's simply not afraid of the silence, because in that silence, he's not lost, he's home. Number 6, he's intimidating. He doesn't posture, doesn't flex, doesn't bark, and yet, when he enters a room, something changes. People might not know why they glance up, why conversations pause for a split second, or why they instinctively notice him even if he hasn't said a word. It's not bravado, it's not showmanship. It's the quiet authority of someone who's mastered stillness. In a world that rewards noise and celebrates performative confidence, this kind of presence stands out like a whisper in a hurricane. Stillness is power. It signals control, discipline, and self-assuredness. Psychologically, it's been observed that individuals who speak less and move with purpose are perceived as more competent and dominant. This isn't about arrogance or aloofness, it's about internal grounding. The Sigma male, often described as the lone wolf of social hierarchies, embodies this principle fully. He doesn't need validation, approval, or applause. His confidence is not inflated, it's earned and therefore unshakable. Power that doesn't speak paradoxically echoes louder because it forces others to lean in, to observe, to wonder. There's a natural magnetism in restraint. Think of historical figures like Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, who ruled one of the largest empires in history with calm deliberation and thoughtful silence. Or modern examples like Keanu Reeves, whose soft-spoken demeanor and humility command far more respect than any chest-thumping celebrity. In fact, studies in behavioral psychology have shown that those who practice composed silence and strategic speech often lead more effectively, as people interpret their words as carrying more weight. It's the law of contrast. When everyone else is shouting, the one who whispers becomes unforgettable. So while the world clamors for attention, the man rooted in stillness doesn't chase it, he attracts it. And not because he demands it, but because people sense a force within him they can't quite explain. It's not about what he's doing, it's about what he's not doing. He's not performing, he's simply being, anchored, alert, aware. That's why his presence shifts the energy of the room. It's the echo of unspoken power, reverberating louder than any shout ever could. Number 7. He's untrustworthy. People trust the predictable, the familiar, the echo chamber that reassures them they're not alone in their thoughts, their habits, or their fears. Society finds comfort in routine, in people who fit a mold and follow the script. That's why Sigma males unsettle so many. The Sigma isn't predictable. He's the wild card in a world obsessed with patterns. He's not interested in small talk or superficial validation. He doesn't explain every move he makes, and he certainly doesn't feel the need to overshare the way others do just to feel accepted. This confuses people. In a society where vulnerability is often performed for attention, where relatability is currency, the Sigma's silence feels like rebellion, so people assume he must be hiding something. They whisper, they speculate, they fill in the blanks with their own projections. But the truth is simpler. He's not hiding anything. He's protecting everything, his thoughts, his peace, his values, and most of all, his identity. This behavior isn't rooted in arrogance, it's strategic. Studies in psychology show that humans have a tendency toward we believe others can sense what we're thinking or feeling. But Sigmas operate in reverse. They intentionally obscure their inner world, not to manipulate, but to preserve it. They understand that most people listen to respond, not to understand. So why throw pearls before swine? Why expose something sacred to people who won't get it, or worse, weaponize it? Instead, Sigmas let their actions speak. They don't make promises they can't keep or boast about what they're going to do. They do it, they live it. And if you're paying attention, you'll see it, because trust to a Sigma is not handed out like candy on Halloween. It's forged slowly, in silence and consistency. The Sigma male walks through life with the quiet confidence of someone who has nothing to prove, but everything to protect. He's not part of the echo chamber. He's the static that disrupts it, and in a world that demands your attention, your loyalty, and your soul, his resistance to overexposure is not only rare, it's powerful. Number 8, he got lucky. They never saw the isolation. The Sigma male's journey begins not in the spotlight, but in solitude. While others were out seeking validation, he was in the shadows, crafting his character. They never noticed the discipline, those grueling early mornings and relentless late nights spent learning, planning, and improving. There were no witnesses to the 10,000 quiet choices he made, the skipped parties, the hours in the gym when no one was watching, the decision to read a book instead of scrolling aimlessly. These weren't dramatic, showy acts of self-improvement. They were deliberate moves in a long game of mastery. Because the Sigma male doesn't broadcast his hustle. He doesn't post his every achievement for likes. He doesn't crave attention, he craves freedom. And freedom for him is earned through self-discipline, not self-promotion. The world doesn't understand this kind of man because he doesn't fit the mold. He doesn't chase status or engage in pointless social hierarchies. Instead, he builds substance layer by layer. He acquires skills, not clout. He invests in knowledge, not followers. In a society obsessed with image, he becomes the anomaly, the outlier who grows in silence. And when he rises, suddenly, powerfully, it confuses the very people who once laughed at his stillness. They didn't see the silent grind. They didn't hear the internal wars he fought and won. But now, they can't ignore his presence. What makes the Sigma male's greatness so unique is that it's not loud or boastful. It's enduring. Studies in behavioral psychology show that intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from within, often leads to more sustainable success than external validation. This is exactly what fuels the Sigma. His success isn't meant to impress others. It's a byproduct of who he became while no one was watching. His legacy is not built on volume, but on value. His energy doesn't demand the room, it changes it. He proves that true power doesn't have to shout, it just has to last. And by the time the world notices, it's already too late to catch up, because while they were busy being seen, he was busy becoming. To the outside world, the Sigma male often appears arrogant, cold, and mysterious, an enigma that defies conventional social molds. But this perception is more projection than reality. Society tends to fear what it can't categorize, and the Sigma's independence, self-mastery, and refusal to conform unsettle those who rely on group validation. His solitude isn't loneliness, it's strength. His silence isn't arrogance, it's depth. The truth is, people label what they can't control. Sigma males were never meant to fit in, they were meant to stand out. And in doing so, they become unforgettable. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable. This is Brain Boosters. He doesn't bark, he doesn't boast, he just moves, and when he does, the ground beneath you shifts. Not because he craves power, but because he understands it. This isn't the kind of power that screams or demands attention. It's the kind that operates in silence, waiting for the right moment to act. This is the Sigma male, the lone wolf of modern masculinity. In a world obsessed with dominance and submission, where alpha males roar and beta males yield, the Sigma does neither. He doesn't enter the room to control it. He becomes the silent force that redefines it. Psychology calls this type of man introverted dominant, a person who doesn't seek leadership yet often ends up leading. He doesn't climb the social ladder, he walks past it uninterested. Society fears what it can't control, and that's what makes the Sigma so unsettling. He can't be caged, he can't be labeled, and most importantly, he can't be manipulated. While others shout to be noticed, he observes. While they chase validation, he builds mastery in silence. Most people are noise, he is signal, and in that stillness, he becomes magnetic. Studies in behavioral science show that those who operate calmly under pressure often command more respect than those who dominate aggressively. The Sigma doesn't ask for your attention, yet somehow he has it. His presence is not loud, but it's felt. He doesn't chase crowds. Crowds find him, and they don't even know why. He's not dangerous because he's violent. He's dangerous because he's unshakable. In a digital age, hooked on dopamine hits and social approval, the Sigma thrives in solitude. That's real strength. You won't see him coming because he never announces himself. And when he acts, it's with surgical precision. This isn't about being cold, it's about being in control. The Sigma male isn't here to play by the rules. He's here to rewrite them, quietly, intentionally, and without ever raising his voice. Welcome to Brain Boosters. Let's step into the shadows. Point 1, emotional sovereignty. A Sigma male doesn't react, he registers. In a world addicted to overreaction, instant gratification, and emotional chaos, the Sigma stands apart like a calm eye in the middle of a storm. His emotional discipline is not about cold detachment, but conscious awareness. While others are consumed by anger, panic, or excitement, the Sigma feels those same emotions, but he doesn't become them. He observes them. He studies them like a scientist watching a chemical reaction, not with judgment, but with curiosity. He knows that emotions are not commands, they are signals, and instead of reacting impulsively, he allows those emotions to rise, crest, and fall like waves. This ability to pause, process, and recalibrate gives him a powerful psychological edge. Studies in emotional intelligence have shown that self-awareness and regulation are two of the most important traits in high-performing individuals, especially leaders. But the Sigma isn't looking to lead in the traditional sense. He leads by example through stillness and strategy. Where others lash out, beg for attention, or spiral into breakdowns, the Sigma recalibrates silently, adapts, and redirects his energy. This isn't repression, it's mastery. And that mastery makes him unpredictable, calm under pressure, and resistant to manipulation. You can't guilt trip him, you can't flatter him into compliance, and you certainly can't shame him into submission. He doesn't depend on praise to feel worthy, and he isn't driven by fear to conform. That kind of independence is dangerous in a society built on social conditioning. A man who doesn't need applause won't dance to your tune. A man who doesn't fear rejection won't follow the herd. The Sigma understands that true power lies not in controlling others, but in mastering yourself. And while the world tries to provoke him, poke at him, and figure him out, he just watches, still, silent, calculating, because behind every calm expression is a mind that never stops thinking, and behind every non-reaction is a man who has already seen the outcome 10 steps ahead. Point 2, strategic isolation. He chooses solitude, not as an escape, but as a weapon. While most people fear being alone, the Sigma male embraces it with intention. He understands that solitude isn't loneliness, it's space for evolution. In this quiet arena where distractions are stripped away, he sharpens his mind, hones his craft, and trains his instincts. This isn't retreat, it's preparation. Historically, some of the world's greatest thinkers, from Nikola Tesla to Leonardo da Vinci, operated in solitude to unlock their genius. The Sigma male follows this ancient wisdom. He spends his time reading, experimenting, mastering disciplines others overlook. While the world chases noise and applause, he remains rooted in silence and purpose. He's not checking likes or retweets, he's checking progress. And what he's building in private will shake the world in public. This man isn't afraid of being alone because he's already faced and conquered the most difficult adversary, himself. Self-awareness is his foundation. He's wrestled with his demons, dissected his weaknesses, and learned to lead himself when no one was watching. There's no external validation that can shake a man who has internal validation. Psychologically, solitude can enhance creativity, emotional regulation, and problem-solving ability. Traits the Sigma cultivates intentionally. There's no need for echo chambers when your own thoughts are loud enough to challenge you. In solitude, he doesn't rehearse who the world wants him to be. He refines who he is. The clarity he gains isn't fragile. It's forged through hours of reflection and practice. And when a man walks through life with that kind of clarity, he becomes unstoppable. He doesn't jump on trends because he isn't looking for temporary relevance. He sets trajectories, planting seeds in silence that bloom in places others never thought to look. While society rushes toward attention, he gravitates toward mastery. The Sigma doesn't shout to be seen. He moves in silence, and people can't help but feel the tremors of his presence. He's not disconnected, he's deeply in tune. He's not apathetic, he's focused. He's not above others, he's just beyond the need to impress them. This is the power of solitude when it's used not to escape the world, but to prepare to lead it. Point 3, tactical ghosting. When a Sigma male withdraws, it isn't loud, messy, or dramatic. It's more like a sudden power outage. The lights are on one moment, and the next, complete silence. But that silence isn't passive or confused. It's deliberate. It's what psychologists might call strategic disengagement. The Sigma doesn't leave because he's angry or emotionally overwhelmed. He steps back because his internal compass tells him it's time to preserve his energy, reset his boundaries, and re-establish his autonomy. And when he disconnects, people feel it deeply. That's because Sigma males often hold invisible weight in social dynamics. They may not be the loudest voice in the room, but their presence creates balance. Remove them, and the atmosphere shifts. People start to notice the absence of quiet strength, deep awareness, and authentic energy. This withdrawal isn't about playing games or manipulating others through silence. It's a kind of emotional minimalism. Unlike others who might express discontent through arguments, passive-aggressive remarks, or emotional outbursts, the Sigma male opts for detachment, not because he doesn't care, but because he refuses to engage in cycles of unnecessary chaos. He's wired differently. Studies in psychology have shown that individuals with introverted yet assertive personalities, often classified under the INTJ or ISTP Myers-Briggs types, tend to regulate stress by detaching and analyzing rather than reacting emotionally. That's exactly what the Sigma does. He's not ghosting to be cruel, he's ghosting to be clear. It's a message written in silence. I value my peace over pointless conflict. And no, you can't tug on a Sigma's heartstrings to bring him back, because he's already done the hard inner work of cutting emotional dependency. He doesn't need validation to breathe, nor attention to feel alive, so when he pulls away, it's not to seek revenge or sympathy, it's to recalibrate. He's like a computer closing all background apps to function at maximum efficiency. The world might label it ghosting, but for the Sigma, it's clarity. Clarity about who deserves access to him and who no longer fits the frequency he's operating on. That's not coldness, it's self-respect. Point 4, boundary without explanation. The Sigma male doesn't beg for understanding, and that alone sets him apart in a world obsessed with validation. He doesn't over-explain his choices or defend his path because he knows that truth doesn't need permission to exist. Instead, he operates on a foundation of logic, personal principles, and a finely tuned internal compass. Every action he takes is deliberate, not driven by public opinion, external pressure, or the need to be liked, but by a deep alignment with what he believes is right. This unnerves people. Society has conditioned most individuals to constantly explain themselves, to seek approval, to apologize for being different. We live in a culture where oversharing is seen as connection and validation is mistaken for truth. In contrast, the Sigma male's silence is powerful, almost confrontational. It forces others to sit with their own discomfort, to question their own need for affirmation. He's not interested in being understood. He's interested in being authentic. This is not arrogance, it's clarity. Psychologically, studies show that individuals with high self-differentiation, those who can maintain their beliefs and values even under pressure, experience less anxiety and greater emotional resilience. That's the Sigma. He doesn't fear rejection because his sense of self isn't built on the approval of others. But he does fear one thing: compromise. The Sigma knows that every time you compromise on your core values to please others, a part of your identity erodes. And when you fear compromise more than you fear loss, whether it's relationships, opportunities, or public favor, you become untouchable. You're no longer a slave to outcomes. You're no longer swayed by fear or bribed by comfort. You move through life with a kind of quiet power that doesn't shout but shakes the ground. That's why the Sigma male is so difficult to manipulate. You can't guilt-trip a man who doesn't chase approval. You can't seduce a man who values freedom over flattery. And you definitely can't control someone who would rather walk alone in truth than march with the masses in lies. In a world where everyone is desperate to be seen, the Sigma male's refusal to beg for understanding becomes his greatest strength and his most mysterious weapon. Point 5. Obsession with skill. The Sigma male doesn't compete with others. He competes with who he was yesterday. While the world is busy shouting, showing off, and scrambling for validation, the Sigma retreats into his world of quiet self-improvement. He's not driven by applause or comparison. His mission is personal. His battle is internal. You won't find him in locker room debates or trying to outshine someone at a party. Instead, you'll catch glimpses of him in libraries, gyms, dark-lit rooms where screens glow with lines of code, or nature trails where he trains in solitude. Every hour he spends in silence, reading a dense philosophical treatise, learning a new skill, refining a business model, is another brick in the fortress of mastery he's building. Mastery, after all, is his native language, not ego, not popularity, but precision, discipline, and evolution. Unlike the alpha, who dominates through charisma and loud presence, or the beta, who seeks guidance and approval, the Sigma male charts his own course. He's not antisocial, he's selectively social. He doesn't broadcast his power with words, you simply it. You see it in how he moves with purpose, how he listens more than he speaks, and how his eyes scan a room and catch things most miss. It's in the things he builds: businesses, bodies, ideas, legacies. Studies on high performers and lone innovators like Nikola Tesla or Steve Wozniak show that some of the most influential figures thrived in solitude, driven not by the need to beat others, but to challenge themselves. This is the Sigma male mindset in action. In a world obsessed with trends, the Sigma becomes timeless. While others flex for attention, he sharpens his mind. While they seek clout, he seeks clarity. His detachment from the competition isn't laziness or fear, it's strategy. Because the only race he runs is against his former self, and every day he intends to win. Not to prove it to you, not to brag, but because that's what purpose demands. And for the Sigma, purpose is everything. Point 6, detachment from outcome. A Sigma male plays the long game, and that's exactly what makes him a force to be reckoned with. In a world obsessed with instant gratification, likes, and fast results, the Sigma operates on a different wavelength. He's not seduced by the dopamine rush of being first, loudest, or most visible. He's strategic, patient, and dangerously precise. While others scramble to be seen, the Sigma quietly works to be remembered. He's not addicted to quick wins because he knows that rapid success often fades just as fast. Research in psychology even backs this mindset. Studies show that delayed gratification is a key predictor of long-term success, emotional stability, and life satisfaction. The Sigma male naturally embodies this principle, not because he read it in a book, but because it's coded into his instincts. He doesn't need to chase applause, approval, or revenge. His ego isn't fragile enough to need validation. While most people seek victory in the moment, the Sigma seeks position in the future. That's why he doesn't just compete. He observes, calculates, and plants seeds in silence. He understands that building something meaningful takes time, and he's more than willing to wait. But don't mistake his patience for passivity. The Sigma is always moving, just not in ways that are obvious. His every decision is a brick in a foundation that others won't notice until it's towering over them. And because he isn't emotionally reactive, he can navigate betrayal, setbacks, or rejection with unnerving calm. He doesn't act to dominate today, he acts to own tomorrow. This long-term vision is what makes him dangerous in a world that celebrates short-term gains. By the time others realize what he's building, it's already too late to catch up. He's not loud about it. He doesn't broadcast his strategy, but rest assured he has one. It's a silent, calculated mission toward a legacy that outlives noise, trends, and temporary recognition. That's the Sigma's edge. While others burn out chasing approval or temporary wins, the Sigma remains focused, unbothered, and lethal in his patience. He doesn't play for applause, he plays for permanence. Point 7, invisibility is his power. While the world celebrates loud ambition, selfies, status updates, and constant noise, the Sigma male slips into the shadows, not out of weakness, but from wisdom. He doesn't need to broadcast his every move or chase validation from the crowd. Instead, he chooses depth over display, mastery over mediocrity. This is what makes him dangerous. Not in a destructive sense, but in a transformative one. You see, in a society obsessed with visibility, the one who operates in silence becomes a mystery. The Sigma is often underestimated because he doesn't play by the rules of social dominance. He's not vying for alpha approval or seeking beta camaraderie. He walks his own path, charted by personal principles and strategic solitude. While others are caught in cycles of competition and conformity, the Sigma studies, plans, evolves. And by the time people realize what he's doing, he's already 5 steps ahead. Psychologically, this aligns with the concept of strategic introversion. Research shows that introverted individuals often engage in deeper levels of thinking and problem solving because their energy isn't dispersed on social validation. The Sigma takes this to another level, combining stoic independence with sharp emotional intelligence. His unpredictability isn't a flaw, it's a tactic. Because people can't read him, they can't manipulate or prepare for his next move. He knows how to remain calm in chaos, how to act when others react, and how to walk away when most people cling. That unreadability becomes his greatest weapon in a world desperate for patterns and predictability. But don't mistake his silence for inaction. While others announce their goals, the Sigma quietly achieves his. While others talk about what they'll do, he's already done it. His power lies in the element of surprise, not because he wants to shock, but because his process is internal, layered, and methodical. In a sense, the Sigma is like the deep ocean, still on the surface, but teeming with force below. And by the time you realize how deep he runs, you're already out of breath trying to catch up. He doesn't rise by climbing over others. He rises because he's building something no one else can see until it's complete. The Sigma disappears into depth, not to escape the world, but to master it from angles no one else dares to explore. Point 8, he doesn't want control. He is control. That's the paradox. The Sigma male doesn't seek to dominate others, not through noise, not through manipulation, not through force. He doesn't chase validation or control people's perceptions. In fact, he's too preoccupied with mastering the only territory that truly matters, himself. While the world around him clamors for attention, approval, and influence, he walks a different path, quiet, calculated, and introspective. This self-mastery is his power. And ironically, it's this power that draws people to him like moths to a flame. His silence speaks louder than most people's speeches. His restraint makes others curious. His independence makes others feel exposed. The Sigma is the storm that doesn't roar, not because it is weak, but because it knows its strength. He's like a lion that doesn't chase because it knows it can, and that confidence unsettles others. His presence doesn't need an introduction, it's felt, not announced. There's psychological evidence to back this phenomenon. Studies in social psychology reveal that people are naturally drawn to those who are emotionally self-regulated and non-reactive. The Sigma's emotional independence creates a calm, magnetic field, one that people feel safer around yet slightly intimidated by. He has the edge of someone who could shake the ground beneath your feet but chooses not to. That control of his emotions, his reactions, his impulses is what people often mistake for mystery or danger. They sense the depth of his thought, the sharpness of his awareness, and the unpredictability of his next move. This unpredictability triggers a psychological response known as uncertainty arousal, where people feel both intrigued and unsettled. They don't know what he'll do next, and that makes them hyper-aware of him. While alphas may lead with volume and betas may follow with dependence, the sigma leads with presence and follows no one. His energy lingers in a room long after he's left, not because he demanded attention, but because he owned himself completely. That's the paradox. He seeks no followers, yet people follow him. He desires no control, yet he influences effortlessly. And he says nothing, yet the silence around him becomes the loudest thing people hear. A sigma male is dangerous, not out of malice or aggression, but because his independence defies the rules society depends on. He doesn't chase approval, validation, or power, yet somehow commands all three effortlessly. While others seek permission to rise, he builds quietly in the shadows, mastering his craft and mind. The danger lies in his self-sufficiency. He doesn't need the system, which makes him immune to its control. This unpredictability unsettles the status quo. In a world that thrives on noise and conformity, the sigma male remains a silent storm, unseen, unfazed, and unforgettable. He doesn't just survive, he rewrites the rules. They tell you to follow the crowd. He never does. They say fit in, he walks out. They call it rebellion, he calls it truth. The sigma male is not defined by noise, attention, or applause. He doesn't chase validation or broadcast his every move to win approval. Instead, his strength lies in his silence, his independence, and his ability to see the world for what it is. An elaborate stage where most people play parts written by someone else. While the majority seek comfort in conformity, the sigma thrives in solitude, where he is free to think, question, and dismantle illusions. He's not interested in the latest trends, the social hierarchies, or the endless competition to be somebody. Not because he's trying to rebel, but because he sees the game for what it is, a system built to distract, control, and pacify. In psychological terms, the sigma is an embodiment of the someone who's driven not by social approval, but by inner truth. He questions what others accept without a second thought. While the masses absorb narratives handed down through media, culture, and tradition, the sigma dissects them, pulling them apart to see what they're really made of. This mindset is rooted in high critical thinking and strong self-awareness, traits often linked to lone wolves in psychology and leadership studies. He doesn't rage against the machine, he simply walks away from it, and that unnerves people. His calm, detached clarity cuts through social noise like a scalpel, and in a world that thrives on groupthink, manipulation, and shallow identity, someone who doesn't play by the script becomes a threat. Not because he attacks the system, but because he's proof that you don't need it. As we peel back the layers of mass-believed lies, remember this. The sigma doesn't need to scream the truth. His very existence whispers it loud enough. And that whisper, that's what makes people turn, stare, and wonder what he knows that they don't. Belief one, you need to be constantly social to be successful. The world often equates extroversion with influence. We're told that the loudest voice commands the room, that charisma equals leadership, and that success is found in constant connection. But the sigma male quietly rewrites that narrative. For him, power isn't measured in volume. It's measured in clarity, intention, and depth. In a culture obsessed with being seen, the sigma thrives in the unseen. Solitude isn't his punishment, it's his forge. Where others dread silence, fearing it might echo back their insecurities, the sigma finds a signal in the quiet, a refined frequency that tunes him into his purpose. Neuroscience even backs this up. Studies show that time spent in solitude improves memory, boosts creativity, and strengthens focus by giving the brain uninterrupted space to reflect and rewire. While the extroverted world chases endless conversations and surface-level validation, the sigma male uses his time alone to master his craft. He doesn't waste hours impressing strangers at social events. He invests those hours in building systems, refining skills, and constructing a life on his terms. Think of innovators like Nikola Tesla or introverted strategists like Warren Buffett. Men who didn't seek the spotlight but became icons because they mastered the art of focus and deliberate thinking. The Sigma doesn't resist the world, he simply walks through it differently. His quiet is not emptiness, it's incubation. His distance is not detachment, it's precision. He may appear indifferent to the buzz of the crowd, but beneath that still surface is a mind that's constantly observing, learning, and adapting. While others are distracted by popularity contests, he's busy building empires behind the scenes. Society may praise extroversion for its charm, but the Sigma male proves that silence can be just as commanding when it's backed by substance, strategy, and self-mastery. In a world that mistakes noise for strength, the Sigma's power lies in his ability to remain still, think deeply, and act decisively. Belief 2. Emotions should guide your decisions. Sigma males don't reject emotion, they master it. In a world that often tells men to either suppress their feelings or drown in them, the Sigma male walks an entirely different path. He doesn't shove emotions into the dark corners of his psyche, nor does he allow them to run wild and dictate his every move. Instead, he studies them, understands their roots, and uses them as data points rather than commands. Neuroscience confirms that emotions are closely tied to decision-making, especially in the amygdala and prefrontal cortex. But while most people are ruled by the impulses triggered in those brain regions, the Sigma male activates the higher reasoning centers to stay calm, collected, and in control. Society tends to give men two options: be as hard as stone or as soft as water, completely shut down emotionally or become emotionally reactive. But the Sigma is neither. He is fire. Not destructive and reckless, but focused and purposeful. Fire transforms, refines, and only consumes what is necessary. The Sigma uses his inner flame to burn away distractions, fuel ambition, and illuminate the truth of who he is. He doesn't lash out in anger. He channels that energy into strategy. He doesn't freeze in fear. He turns that fear into fuel for growth. He doesn't run from pain, he interrogates it, learns from it, and moves forward stronger. What sets the Sigma apart is his refusal to be emotionally manipulated. While others may cave under pressure, guilt, or societal expectations, he follows the path dictated by truth, not trends. He knows that raw emotion, unchecked, can lead people to betray themselves, but when mastered, emotions become a compass that guides him inward, toward clarity. Entertainment media often paints emotionally detached men as either villains or broken souls. But the Sigma is neither. He feels deeply but rarely shows it unless there's purpose behind the reveal. He's not heartless, he's disciplined, he's not cold, he's precise. The Sigma male's emotional intelligence lies not in how loudly he feels, but in how silently and effectively he moves through those feelings, always anchoring himself in what is real, what is right, and what is necessary. This is not denial. It is domination of the self, and in that mastery he becomes unstoppable. Belief 3, you need approval to be worthy. Likes, followers, compliments. In today's hyper-connected world, these have become society's new currency, metrics by which people measure their worth, popularity, and even success. But the Sigma male walks an entirely different path. He isn't driven by the fleeting buzz of digital validation or the applause of the crowd. His wealth isn't external, it's internal. It's the wealth of self-awareness, of knowing who he is when no one's watching. He doesn't perform to be liked, nor does he curate his personality for approval. While others chase trends and contort their image to fit social molds, the Sigma male remains anchored in authenticity. He doesn't bend to be liked. He doesn't shift to be seen. His self-respect isn't up for negotiation, and his values aren't compromised for attention. Psychology supports this mindset. Research on intrinsic motivation reveals that individuals who derive their sense of worth from internal goals, like personal growth or autonomy, tend to have higher well-being and are less susceptible to anxiety or depression than those chasing external validation. For the Sigma, being misunderstood is a price he's willing to pay for his integrity. It's not because he thinks he's better than others, but because he knows the danger of living for likes. It's a slippery slope to self-abandonment. That's not arrogance, it's armor. Armor forged in solitude, shaped by reflection and worn not to repel others, but to protect what's sacred within. He's aware that popularity can be purchased, but authenticity must be earned, and sometimes earned in silence. He doesn't feel the need to explain himself or seek the crowd's approval because his compass isn't pointing outward, it's pointed within. This rare independence can confuse others, even intimidate them, because it exposes just how much of the average person's identity is borrowed from the outside world. The Sigma male is a reminder that there is a deeper, quieter power in walking alone, not in bitterness, but in clarity. In a world addicted to being seen, he's focused on seeing himself clearly, and that clarity is more valuable than any number of followers, likes, or empty praise. Belief 4. You must constantly explain yourself. The world is obsessed with explanations, craving reasons, justifications, and endless dialogue to make sense of someone's choices. But the Sigma male operates by a different code. He understands that true clarity doesn't require confirmation. If he chooses to exit a conversation, leave a job, or walk away from a relationship, he does so with calm resolve, not as an act of rebellion, but as a declaration of sovereignty. He doesn't feel the need to draft emotional essays or offer long-winded speeches about why he made that decision. Why? Because he knows that often, the more you explain, the more others try to challenge, manipulate, or control your reasoning. The act of explaining becomes an invitation, an open door for people to inject their opinions, twist your truth, or try to negotiate your boundaries. Sigma males deny that entry. Silence for them is not awkward, it is powerful. It becomes the loudest message in a world addicted to noise. Psychology even backs this up. Studies show that assertive individuals who operate with emotional independence often speak less and act more. It's not arrogance, it's clarity. It's a deep understanding that those who truly understand you don't need explanations, and those who demand them often don't care about your truth. They just want control over your decision-making process. In refusing to explain, the Sigma male reclaims his autonomy. He doesn't ghost out of immaturity. He disappears because staying would compromise his peace. And while others scramble to make sense of his absence, he's already moved on to the next purpose-driven path. His silence becomes a mirror, forcing others to face their own discomfort, their own insecurities, their own need for external validation. That's the thing about Sigmas. They don't seek applause, agreement, or approval. Their compass is internal, their decisions calculated, their exit deliberate. They live by a rare law of inner authority that doesn't beg to be understood. In a world where people are constantly broadcasting their every thought, the Sigma male chooses mystery. And in doing so, he remains one of the most misunderstood and most powerful figures in modern social psychology. Belief 5. You must respond to disrespect immediately. Some think that reacting fiercely to every insult or confrontation is a sign of strength, a way to assert dominance and earn respect. But the Sigma male knows better. He understands a deeper truth. Real power lies in restraint, not reaction. While the world teaches you to respond with emotion, to bark back louder when challenged, the Sigma moves in silence. He doesn't flinch when provoked because his confidence isn't fragile. It isn't tied to public opinion or ego battles. Instead, he wields emotional control like a weapon. Studies in psychology have shown that emotional regulation, the ability to pause and choose your response, is a mark of advanced self-awareness and intelligence. And this is the Sigma's natural state. When someone disrespects him, he doesn't waste time crafting the perfect comeback or trying to win the crowd. He simply removes himself. Distance becomes his statement. In a society obsessed with confrontation and constant validation, his silence speaks louder than any shouted defense. This isn't weakness, it's strategy. The Sigma knows that attention is a currency, and he won't spend it on what doesn't serve him. He vanishes, not because he's defeated, but because he's already won by refusing to play a pointless game. His detachment is unsettling to others because they can't manipulate what they can't provoke. And in that silence, the Sigma rewrites the rules of engagement. He proves that the most dangerous man in any room is not the loudest, not the angriest, but the one who doesn't need to prove a thing and still comes out on top. He's not looking for applause or revenge. His greatest revenge is elevation, moving forward, growing stronger, and letting others drown in their own chaos. The Sigma isn't reactive because he knows that reaction gives others control. Instead, he observes, calculates, and if necessary, disappears. And in that disappearance, there is power. Because while everyone else is still arguing, he's already on to greater things. That's what makes him unstoppable. Belief 6, power comes from dominating others. The alpha flexes, the beta submits, the sigma calculates. In a world that obsesses over dominance and submission, the sigma male breaks the pattern entirely. He's not the loudest in the room, nor is he the most agreeable, but he is often the most unsettling to those around him. Why? Because he plays a different game altogether. While alphas try to control people with force and betas seek approval through compliance, the sigma controls only one thing: his presence. His emotional detachment is not a sign of weakness or lack of interest. It's a form of power, a conscious choice rooted in deep self-awareness. When he walks away, the silence he leaves behind can echo louder than any words shouted by an alpha. Studies in social dynamics show that people respond more intensely to unpredictability than to direct confrontation. This is why the sigma's withdrawal often triggers more reflection and emotional response than any aggressive move. It's the psychology of absence. When something rare or mysterious is taken away, its value intensifies. The sigma understands this on a strategic level. He doesn't burn bridges, he disappears into the fog, leaving others to question their own actions. His detachment isn't coldness, it's calibration. He knows when to lean in and, more importantly, when to step back. The calmness he carries isn't just composure, it's a warning. He's not invested in winning your approval, and that unsettles people used to validation-based power structures. This isn't to say he's emotionless. On the contrary, he feels deeply but rarely shows it, and that emotional control makes him both mysterious and magnetic. People can't quite figure him out, and in a world addicted to labels and certainty, that mystery becomes power. He's not in the crowd nor against it, he's simply beyond it. While others perform, he observes. While others argue, he calculates. While others chase attention, he disappears, only to return stronger, more refined, and more dangerous. The sigma doesn't conquer through confrontation. He conquers through absence. And sometimes the loudest statement a man can make is his silence. Belief 7, you need to be part of a group to be safe. Herd mentality says stick together or perish. But the sigma walks alone by choice, not exile. In a world where belonging is often equated with survival, the sigma male defies the narrative, not out of rebellion, but out of deliberate understanding. While society teaches us to seek validation, support, and comfort in the group, the sigma has discovered that his greatest strength is cultivated in solitude. Unlike alpha males who dominate social structures or betas who find identity through them, the sigma steps off the path entirely. He knows that crowds often follow illusions, echoing each other's thoughts without question, like schools of fish darting in fear or tribes forming consensus without reflection. The sigma, on the other hand, takes the slower, more dangerous route of independent thought. This doesn't mean he's antisocial or emotionally cold. On the contrary, he deeply understands human connection. He just doesn't need it to feel whole. His relationships are chosen, not required. He may build powerful alliances with others, but never becomes entangled in the emotional dependencies that come with attachment. Psychological studies show that solitude, when chosen voluntarily, increases creativity, emotional resilience, and cognitive clarity. The sigma uses this solitude not to escape the world, but to sharpen his perspective. He becomes a master observer, watching, understanding, and strategically engaging when necessary. He doesn't isolate out of bitterness, but out of clarity. In doing so, he becomes the outlier, the variable the system can't control. His detachment is not a shield, but a strategy. And while the herd panics at the thought of being left behind, the sigma thrives in the quiet spaces they fear. The world may call him a mystery, a lone wolf, or even an enigma, but for him, this life is not a curse, it's freedom. He walks alone, not because no one will walk with him, but because the path he chooses simply doesn't allow for crowds. Belief 8, stay safe, avoid risk, play it smart. The sigma male isn't reckless, but he's not ruled by comfort either. Unlike the average man who often chooses the safety of routine over the uncertainty of growth, the sigma male willingly steps into discomfort if it brings him closer to truth. His journey isn't about playing it safe, it's about chasing something real, even if it means walking alone. He'll walk through fire if it leads to freedom, not because he's immune to fear, but because he refuses to let fear dictate his decisions. Psychologists describe this mindset as high self-direction and autonomy. traits linked to greater personal fulfillment and psychological resilience. He understands that personal evolution doesn't happen in the safety zone. It happens in solitude, in trial, and in honest confrontation with oneself. The Sigma male risks being misunderstood, judged, or even abandoned, not out of rebellion, but out of devotion to his path of self-discovery. He doesn't chase legacy with a need for applause or external validation. Instead, he builds his legacy in silence, through restraint, excellence, and calculated moves. Studies in behavioral psychology show that individuals who operate with long-term vision and impulse control are more likely to achieve higher life satisfaction and success. That's the Sigma's playground. Every action he takes is intentional, unhurried, and often unnoticed by the crowd. He doesn't need to be seen to feel valuable. He doesn't need noise to feel alive. While the world rushes to be heard, he listens. While others seek attention, he seeks mastery. His life is the performance, quiet, powerful, and unforgettable. It's a masterpiece unfolding behind closed doors. He may not dominate boardrooms with charisma or flood social feeds with curated perfection, but he influences through presence, through energy, and through the sheer weight of his authenticity. He's not trying to be different. He just is. The Sigma male isn't trying to escape the system. He simply refuses to be controlled by it. His freedom is internal, his discipline is fierce, and his silence. That's where the real power lies. While the world watches for fireworks, the Sigma becomes the storm in the distance, unpredictable, undeniable, and unforgettable. These 8 beliefs are widely accepted by society without question, almost like default settings in the human operating system. But the Sigma male doesn't operate on pre-installed software. He questions every line of code. In a world that rewards conformity and punishes deviation, the Sigma chooses autonomy over approval. While others seek validation, he seeks truth. He isn't rebellious for attention, nor is he detached for drama. He simply refuses to live by second-hand thoughts. Psychology even shows that independent thinkers often face resistance, but they're also the ones who innovate and lead revolutions quietly. The Sigma male walks the road less traveled, not because it's fashionable, but because it's honest. While the world rushes toward noise, he steps back into silence. And in doing so, he becomes magnetic without effort. Stay curious, be unseen, be unfazed, be unforgettable, not by trying to stand out, but by refusing to blend in. Hello, Sigmas. You think you know him, but what you see is only the surface. The truth? He doesn't want to be known. And that's exactly what makes him dangerous. He's the man who walks through a room without saying a word and still manages to dominate its energy. He doesn't crave your attention, yet somehow he captures it. That stillness, that calm exterior, it's not laziness or indifference. It's strategy. It's control. The Sigma male is often misunderstood because he doesn't play by the rules of social hierarchy. He's not an alpha barking orders or a beta seeking approval. He's outside the entire pack. A Sigma male operates on his own terms, walking the edge between visibility and invisibility. And it's not just about mystery, it's about power. Studies in psychology suggest that individuals who are perceived as reserved or emotionally self-contained tend to trigger greater curiosity and respect in social dynamics. That's why people remember the Sigma even after he's long gone. But don't be fooled. Behind the calm, there's a storm of complexity. He's introspective to the point of being surgical. He's constantly analyzing the world and himself, not out of anxiety, but out of sheer precision. Most people talk to be heard. He speaks only when it matters, and that unnerves others, because silence is power when used with intent. What he hides isn't weakness, it's strength. Hidden battles, private convictions, unresolved wounds, all of it turned inward and alchemized into grit. Society often pressures men to express vulnerability for validation, but the Sigma isn't interested in putting his soul on display for applause. He knows that not everything valuable needs to be seen. What's buried inside him? Emotional endurance, a code of loyalty, and a relentless pursuit of self-mastery. Each hidden layer is a weapon, refined through solitude, forged in silence, and polished by experience. So today we go beyond the mask. We step into the unseen territory of the Sigma psyche and uncover the strange, powerful truths he keeps tucked away. These aren't just secrets, they're survival tools. Let's begin with the first. Weird trait 1. He fears one thing, becoming ordinary. He's not afraid of failure because to him, failure isn't the end, it's the tuition fee for mastery. While most people tremble at the idea of falling short, the Sigma male embraces it. He studies his missteps like a scientist in a lab, dissecting each error not with shame, but with curiosity. He understands what Thomas Edison meant when he said, "I have not failed, I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work." He's not afraid of being alone either. In fact, solitude is where he thrives. Unlike extroverts who draw energy from crowds, the Sigma male draws strength from silence. Neuroscience supports this, showing that time spent in solitude can enhance creativity, improve focus, and even increase emotional regulation. But here's the twist. What truly keeps him up at night isn't failure or isolation. It's the idea of fading into the background of a scripted life. The thought of waking up one day and realizing he's simply played a part in someone else's story terrifies him. He doesn't want to become another name on a payroll, another commuter on autopilot, or another opinion recycled from social media. His fear is existential, a quiet panic that he might forget his mission, lose his edge, and dissolve into mediocrity. He guards his individuality like a lion protects its territory. While others chase trends, he carves his own path. He questions everything from societal expectations to his own motivations because he refuses to live a life by default. Studies in psychology show that people who operate from intrinsic motivation like the Sigma male are more likely to experience long-term fulfillment and purpose. So while the world praises those who fit in, he silently builds a legacy that stands out. He's not trying to impress anyone, he's trying to remain true to the fire that burns within, and that's why he can walk away from a job, a relationship, or even a reputation, if it means staying aligned with his deeper calling. Because for the Sigma male, the real danger isn't failure or loneliness, it's dying with his mission still locked inside him, unspoken and unfinished. Weird trait too, he feels deeply, but processes it privately. You won't see him cry, you won't hear him rant. He's the type of man who walks through storms with his hands in his pockets, shoulders square, and silence as his armor. But don't let that stoic surface fool you, because when he's alone, he transforms into a mental surgeon, dissecting his life with almost clinical precision. Pain isn't just felt, it's studied. Betrayal isn't just endured. It's analyzed like a complex riddle. Hope and loss aren't swept under the rug. They're placed on the table, turned over, and examined from every angle. This is the hidden emotional life of a Sigma male, the archetype of the introspective lone wolf. Psychology tells us that emotionally intelligent individuals don't always express emotions outwardly. They process them internally, often through self-reflection and problem-solving. That's exactly what's happening behind closed doors. Instead of venting to friends or breaking down in front of others, the Sigma male chooses solitude to regain clarity. He doesn't drown in his feelings, he decodes them. And that's what makes him powerful. It's not repression, it's transformation. Studies on cognitive processing suggest that individuals who journal, meditate, or simply take time to reflect privately are better at emotional regulation and long-term decision-making. That's why, even when life hits hard, the Sigma male doesn't spiral out of control. He absorbs the blow, retreats to silence, and then rebuilds from the inside out. In a society that often confuses loud expression with strength, his quiet resilience may be misunderstood as coldness or detachment, but in truth it's a form of emotional mastery. He knows that feelings are data, not destiny. So rather than being consumed by them, he decodes the message they carry, files it away, and keeps walking. This inward discipline, this private battle against chaos, is what allows him to re-enter the world composed, focused, and unshaken. He doesn't need applause for surviving. He doesn't crave sympathy for enduring. He just needs a quiet room, a few hours, and the trust that he can make sense of it all on his own. So the next time you see him calm when he should be falling apart, know this. It's not that he feels less. It's that he feels deeply, but processes like a warrior. Weird trait 3. He second-guesses everything, especially himself, not out of weakness, but from a need to refine. This is the silent philosophy of the Sigma male, a man not driven by ego, but by relentless self-examination. Every move he makes is deliberate, not because he's afraid to fail, but because he wants to grow. In a world that often celebrates noise and surface-level validation, the Sigma male retreats into depth. He questions everything, not just the world around him, but also his own instincts, assumptions, and motives. His decisions are not impulsive, but processed through intense introspection. This is not a symptom of insecurity, but evidence of an internal evolution. While others may rush to speak or act to prove their worth, the Sigma observes, studies, and recalibrates. He doesn't fear being wrong. Mistakes are part of the process. What he truly fears is being unaware, disconnected from truth, or asleep at the wheel of his own life. His mind is his battleground, and his quest is for clarity. This mindset aligns closely with the philosophical concept of the idea that wisdom begins with recognizing one's own limitations. Sigmas embody this without ever labeling it. Studies in psychology even suggest that those with higher levels of metacognition, the ability to think about one's own thinking, tend to make better decisions and adapt more quickly to change. That's the Sigma in motion, adapting, adjusting, and refining. He lives in constant beta mode, not because he's broken, but because he's evolving. It's not about being the loudest or the most followed. It's about being the most self-aware. In a society obsessed with certainty, he finds power in curiosity. That's why people often misunderstand him. He can seem distant or hard to read, but in truth, he's just busy thinking deeper than most people are comfortable with. The Sigma male's journey is not linear, and it's certainly not glamorous by conventional standards, but it's real, it's raw, and it's purposeful. He's not afraid to destroy an old version of himself if it means building a better one. In the end, his detachment is not coldness, it's precision. His silence is not absence, it's focus. And his refinement is not perfectionism, it's transformation. Weird trait 4, he's obsessed with freedom, but operates in systems. It sounds contradictory, but it's not. The Sigma male doesn't crave chaos, he craves control. But unlike the Alpha, who commands the external world, the Sigma builds an inner empire governed by structure, self-discipline, and unshakable mental clarity. He doesn't need to dominate people, he dominates himself. Every action in his life, from his morning routine to the way he walks into a room, is deliberate. He wakes before the world, not to post it online, but because he values the silence. In that quiet, he builds mental fortresses through routines, private rituals, and codes of conduct that only he follows. Psychology studies have found that routines can reduce anxiety, increase focus, and even strengthen willpower. Traits Sigma males seem to embody effortlessly. They live by an internal compass that never seeks applause. At his core, the Sigma is an engineer of his own psyche. He reverse engineers his past experiences to understand patterns, emotions, and flaws. He processes feelings like data, breaking them down, extracting meaning, and making peace with them instead of letting them fester. No emotion goes unprocessed. He doesn't suppress what he feels, he studies it. No weakness goes unchecked. If there's a flaw in his character or a gap in his skill set, he isolates it like a virus and works until it's no longer a threat. And no illusion goes unchallenged, whether it's societal norms, groupthink, or even his own assumptions. The Sigma questions everything. He doesn't just live in the world, he audits it. While some chase influence and followers, he builds influence by simply mastering himself. That mastery gives him an eerie calm, an invisible power that people sense but don't quite understand. He walks through chaos like a man who's already prepared for the storm, not because he controls the world, but because he controls his response to it. That's the paradox. His freedom comes from structure, his power from discipline, and his silence speaks louder than the noise around him. This is not just stoicism, it's strategy. The Sigma doesn't obey the world, he designs his own. Weird trait 5, he ghosted you, not to hurt you, but to protect his energy. People often call it cold. They say he's distant, aloof, or even arrogant. But what they don't understand is that for him, silence is not a weakness, it's a weapon. It's a shield he's learned to wield in a world that demands constant noise, validation, and emotional availability. This man, often described as a Sigma male, operates on a different wavelength. He doesn't engage in small talk for the sake of filling awkward silence. He doesn't respond to every provocation or feel the need to explain his every move. Instead, he observes, calculates, and evaluates. Every interaction is measured. He asks himself, will this drain me? Will it disrespect me? Or will it distract me from my purpose? If the answer is yes to any of those, he's already out the door, mentally, emotionally, or physically. This isn't emotional detachment, it's emotional discipline. Psychology actually supports this behavior. Studies in cognitive load theory show that humans have limited mental energy, and constantly engaging in unnecessary conversations or toxic environments depletes that energy quickly. Introverts and analytical thinkers, especially those with traits associated with high-functioning autonomy, know that their peace is a form of power. And so he chooses solitude over chaos, clarity over confusion, and purpose over popularity. What may seem like avoidance is actually discernment. He's learned through experience that not everyone deserves access to his time, his thoughts, or his energy. There's also a neurological edge to his behavior. The brain's amygdala, which processes emotions like fear and anger, is less reactive in people who practice restraint and self-control, traits that define his quiet demeanor. While others shout to be heard, he speaks only when necessary, and when he does, people listen because his words carry the weight of thought and intention. His silence is not a void, it's a boundary, one that protects his mental clarity, filters out nonsense, and allows him to focus on what truly matters. So when people say he's cold, what they really mean is that they can't penetrate his peace, and that frustrates them. Because in a noisy world full of attention seekers, the man who chooses stillness and self-respect stands out, not by trying to be different, but by refusing to be anything other than true to himself. Weird trait 6, he respects loyalty, but rarely trusts anyone fully. He knows people change when they need something. This isn't cynicism, it's clarity born from experience. The Sigma male has observed it countless times. The sudden friendliness of someone who once ignored him, the carefully chosen words from those who once dismissed him, and the resurrected relationships that only rise from the grave when opportunity knocks. He's learned the hard truth that when desperation enters the room, personalities shift like shadows at sunset. Words, he knows, are cheap. Anyone can say the right thing when the stakes are low or when they want something in return. Flattery becomes currency in this transactional world, a manipulative art form dressed up as sincerity. Compliments to him are not always gifts, but often tools of persuasion, cloaked in charm to mask intent. That's why he doesn't trust promises. He trusts patterns. Human behavior is predictable if you're willing to watch without emotion. The Sigma observes the repetitions. The way someone reacts under stress, how they behave when no one's watching, how consistent they are when the spotlight fades. He tracks these patterns like a hunter tracks footprints in the snow, knowing that the truth of a person is found not in what they say, but in what they do. That's why even when he walks beside you, you'll never see him fully expose his back. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he's too seasoned to surrender blind trust. Like a lone wolf that joins the pack only when necessary, the Sigma male remains partially withdrawn, always watching, always aware. Trust, to him, is earned in silence, proven over time, and never demanded. Psychologically, this approach aligns with what behavioral scientists call pattern recognition bias, the ability to predict outcomes based on repeated behaviors. It's a survival mechanism rooted in intuition and refined by experience. Sigma males don't build walls out of fear, wisdom, and those boundaries protect a man who has likely been betrayed before, who has seen masks fall off, and who now understands that loyalty isn't declared, it's demonstrated. So when the world plays its games, the Sigma male doesn't play along. He watches, he listens, and he remembers, because in the end, truth is not what people say, but what they again and again. Weird trait 7, he listens more than he speaks because silence exposes people. In conversations, the Sigma male rarely interrupts, not because he's passive, but because he understands the power of silence. Psychologically, people tend to fill silence with their thoughts, opinions, and emotions. When someone isn't interrupted, they reveal more about themselves, sometimes more than they intend. This is exactly what the Sigma male is waiting for. He observes, he listens, and he learns. By choosing to stay quiet, he gains insight into people's character, intentions, and insecurities. It's a subtle but effective form of social intelligence. In fact, studies in behavioral psychology show that active listening increases trust and openness in others. While alpha males dominate with volume and presence, Sigma males dominate with patience and mystery. This behavior isn't born out of shyness or indifference. It's strategy. He's not interested in small talk or one-upping someone in a debate. Instead, he finds strength in restraint. In a world where everyone rushes to be heard, he stands out by not trying. His calm demeanor and selective speech give weight to his words when he finally does speak. People listen more carefully because he doesn't waste breath. It's this discipline of withholding that makes him magnetic. He doesn't have to prove anything. His silence speaks volumes. And in a society obsessed with being loud, his ability to observe in quiet makes him not just different, but dangerous in the most intelligent way. Weird trait 8. He can be charming, but chooses not to be. Yes, he can play the game. He can manipulate, attract, and influence. With calculated precision, he knows how to say the right things, move in silence, and command attention without raising his voice. But here's the thing. Charm feels fake to him. It's not that he can't be charming. In fact, he's mastered it. But unlike others who wield charm like a constant mask, he treats it like a blade, drawn only when absolutely necessary. That's because the Sigma male operates on a different frequency. Studies in psychology have shown that people who rely less on social validation and more on internal values often have higher levels of authenticity, which makes their rare moments of charm all the more powerful. He knows that excessive charm often borders on manipulation, and manipulation doesn't interest him unless there's a purpose behind it. While alpha males may use charisma to dominate and beta males may use it to please, the Sigma male uses it strategically, to open a door, shift a dynamic, or exit a situation with precision. People sense this difference. His restraint adds weight to his words, making him more mysterious and more memorable. It's not that he can't turn on the charm, it's that he doesn't need to. And in a world obsessed with performance and pretense, that quiet resistance makes him both dangerous and deeply compelling, because when he does decide to charm, it doesn't just impress, it disarms. And that's a power he wields with purpose, not for applause. The Sigma male doesn't hide because he's weak. He hides because his truth is too sharp, too clear, and too calculated for a chaotic, overstimulated world. His silence is not rooted in fear or shame, but in precision and control. Much like the lone wolf who separates from the pack to master its instincts, the Sigma retreats not to escape, but to refine. In psychology, individuals with introverted, intuitive, and analytical traits often perform their best work in solitude. And Sigmas embody this truth. He builds in silence, not for applause, but for alignment with his values. He loves deeply, but not loudly, because real connection doesn't need a stage. Every step he takes is intentional. Every glance is observation, not reaction. He is emotionally intelligent, calculating patterns, motives, and shifts in energy. You may not always understand his moves, but his presence leaves a lasting impression, etched in the memory of those who encounter him. He doesn't shout to be heard. The weight of his silence says more than words ever could. In a world obsessed with visibility, he finds power in being unseen. Stay curious, stay hidden, stay grounded, and like the Sigma, become unforgettable by never needing to prove your worth. Sigmas don't flinch when insulted. He doesn't react when pushed. And when the world raises its voice, he responds with silence. But this silence is not surrender. It's power. It's the strength of a man who's evolved beyond petty confrontations, emotional reactivity, and the need to explain himself to people who were never listening. This isn't apathy. It's not weakness. It's the final form of psychological mastery. When a Sigma becomes untouchable, he enters a state of quiet dominance. While the world runs on noise, validation, and constant social positioning, the Sigma operates in stillness. Studies in behavioral psychology reveal that people who remain calm under stress are perceived as more competent and authoritative. That's exactly what makes the Sigma so unsettling. He breaks social scripts simply by not playing the game. Most men are triggered by disrespect, rejection, or pressure. But the Sigma has trained his mind through solitude, reflection, and detachment. He understands the psychology of control, how those who try to provoke are often revealing their own insecurities. His lack of response becomes a mirror that reflects the chaos of others. He doesn't fight for dominance. His presence alone shifts the dynamic. This isn't about becoming Sigma. This is about the final stage, the untouchable phase. It's when he no longer seeks to fit in, explain himself, or prove his worth. Instead, he influences quietly, strategically, and permanently. He becomes an enigma, a disruptor, a calm force in a world of chaos. and people don't know how to handle a man who can't be manipulated. So if you've ever walked away instead of lashing out or been misunderstood, not because you were wrong, but because you were ahead of your time, you're exactly where you're supposed to be. This is the mindset of the man who cannot be shaken. Welcome to the final form of masculine self-mastery. Let's begin. Number 1, he masters the art of saying less. Words are currency, and the Sigma male spends them like gold, rarely, wisely, never carelessly. In a world obsessed with noise, chatter, and constant validation, the Sigma stands apart like a silent mountain. He doesn't waste words trying to be heard. He waits until the silence is so loud that his voice naturally becomes the focus. Where most people fear awkward pauses in conversation, he sees opportunity. Silence to him is not emptiness, it's presence, it's pressure, it's power. Studies in communication have shown that nonverbal cues, including silence, can be more influential than spoken words. The Sigma understands this instinctively. He lets silence do the heavy lifting while others scramble to fill the void. While some speak to impress, weaving elaborate stories to seek approval, the Sigma speaks to impact. His words aren't just sounds, they're statements. And because he doesn't constantly broadcast his thoughts when he speaks, it lands with precision and weight. Psychologically, people are wired to pay more attention to what's scarce and unpredictable. This is why his mystery becomes magnetic. Oversharing dilutes power. Withholding builds it. The Sigma sharpens his language the way a warrior sharpens his blade. His sentences are short, intentional, and clear, not because he's uninterested, but because he respects the strength of well-placed words. Just as an author trims unnecessary words to strengthen prose, the Sigma refines his speech to eliminate waste. Every word is like a sniper's bullet, measured, calculated, and powerful. This minimalist communication style not only commands respect, it also leaves others slightly on edge. They wonder what he's thinking, they replay his sentences, they anticipate his next move, and that anticipation, that curiosity, gives him a psychological edge in nearly every social interaction. In business, relationships, and leadership, the ability to control a room without saying much is a rare form of influence. The Sigma has mastered that art. His silence is not absence, it's awareness. And his speech is not noise, it's strategy. He knows that in the economy of influence, cheap talk is inflation. So he invests his words like a master trader, only when the return is guaranteed. That's why people listen when he speaks, because every word is chosen like a strike of a blade. Number 2, he observes first, then moves. While others rush in, the Sigma male watches. He doesn't operate in panic or eagerness. Instead, he approaches life like a strategist on a chessboard. He scans the room, not just with his eyes, but with a sharpened intuition trained to read body language, tone, and subtle shifts in energy. Where most people speak to be heard, the Sigma listens to understand. He studies people not to manipulate, but to position himself wisely. His silence isn't empty, it's tactical. In psychology, this is called a trait often linked with high emotional intelligence and strategic thinkers. Unlike the alpha, who thrives on dominance, or the beta, who conforms, the Sigma thrives in calculated detachment. He lets people talk, rant, boast, and bluff, because he knows that given enough time, everyone shows their true hand. He doesn't chase fleeting moments, he times them with surgical precision. In nature, predators like the snow leopard don't waste energy sprinting after every movement. They wait for the perfect opening. The Sigma is no different. He's not interested in being first to jump at every opportunity. He's obsessed with being right. That's the Sigma edge. He trusts his process more than the noise of the crowd. When others are busy acting for attention, posting every move online, seeking validation, the Sigma is moving silently, stacking quiet wins, and preparing for long-term positioning. You might spot him in the corner of the room, seemingly disengaged, but mentally he's already 5 moves ahead. His mind works like a radar, tracking motives, predicting reactions, and assessing potential threats or allies. It's a slow burn strategy, and it works. In military terms, this is the principle of observe, orient, decide, act, OODA loop, and Sigma males live it unconsciously. They don't seek the spotlight because they don't need it. What they want is power, not applause. And power, in the Sigma's world, is born from patience, perception, and precision. While others are burning themselves out trying to impress, the Sigma is quietly building leverage, social, psychological, and financial. Because at the end of the day, he knows something most don't. Timing trumps talent, and silence screams louder than noise. Number 3, he detaches without bitterness. When he leaves, it's clean. No lingering texts, no unfinished conversations, no messy emotional loops, just silence. Complete, final. That's the signature move of the Sigma male. It's not heartlessness, it's discipline. It's a calculated understanding of self-worth and emotional boundaries. While the world is caught up in chasing closure, rehashing arguments, or seeking validation from those who don't value them, the Sigma walks away with something much stronger than vengeance, clarity. He knows something most don't. Detachment isn't weakness, it's power. Psychologically, detachment is the ability to separate one's sense of identity and peace from external chaos. In fact, cognitive behavioral studies suggest that emotional detachment can improve mental health by reducing stress and anxiety, especially in toxic environments. The Sigma male has mastered this. He doesn't ghost to be cruel. He vanishes to protect his energy. He's not emotionally unavailable. He's emotionally selective. He knows that not everyone deserves access to his presence, and he refuses to let drama take root in his life. When a connection turns into confusion, he doesn't demand explanations. He doesn't stalk social media for signs or replay memories in his head. Instead, he lets it all go. People, situations, even feelings that once ran deep. He lets them dissolve like smoke in the wind. Why? Because he knows the cost of clinging to what no longer serves him. The Sigma doesn't beg for closure because he's the closure. His internal compass is strong enough to navigate storms without needing someone else to hand him a map. That's the secret. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he cares enough about himself not to stay in dysfunction. This self-respect, this emotional self-sufficiency is rare and intimidating to many. In a world where people are addicted to emotional chaos, the Sigma chooses peace. And when he walks away, it isn't a cry for attention, it's a final decision. A quiet assertion that his value does not decrease when someone fails to see it. So if a Sigma male leaves, understand it wasn't impulsive, it was intentional. He saw the storm ahead and chose stillness over struggle. No drama, no guilt, just clean silence. The sound of a man who refuses to drown in someone else's storm. Number 4, he trains in solitude. While the world finds comfort in crowds, the Sigma male finds discipline in distance. A quiet rebellion against the noise of conformity. Unlike most who fear solitude, the Sigma does not withdraw to escape the world. He does so to sharpen himself against it. His withdrawal isn't rooted in antisocial behavior, but in a relentless commitment to personal growth. Solitude for him isn't loneliness, it's strategy. Neuroscience even supports this. Studies have shown that solitude can enhance creativity, improve focus, and strengthen emotional regulation. In silence, the Sigma sharpens his thoughts like a blade, cutting away distractions, doubts, and dependence. He uses isolation not as an escape, but as an incubator for transformation. While others seek validation in likes, status, and applause, he seeks clarity in quiet places where the only voice that matters is his own. In solitude, he doesn't just reflect, he plans. He envisions futures no one else can see and works tirelessly behind the scenes to bring them into reality. This discipline in distance is what gives him his edge. When no one is watching, he trains. When others are distracted by noise and trends, he builds in silence. It's a level of self-leadership few can understand because it's not performative, it's purpose-driven. And that's precisely why when he re-emerges, people are shocked. He moves differently, speaks with certainty, and operates at a frequency they weren't ready for. There's a psychological term for this transformation, and it's known to unlock higher cognitive function and self-awareness. The Sigma male doesn't distance himself because he's broken. He distances himself because he's building. And what he's building isn't just success, it's mastery. Mastery over his mind, his path, and his purpose. In a world addicted to constant interaction, the Sigma chooses meaningful evolution. He understands something powerful. Progress often requires stepping away from the crowd to hear the whisper of who you're meant to become. Number 5, he does not explain himself. The Sigma male doesn't need you to understand him, and that's not arrogance, it's self-mastery. He operates on a different frequency, one that isn't tuned to social approval or external validation. While most people spend their lives curating an image, trying to be understood, liked, or accepted, the Sigma walks the opposite path. He's not here to be interpreted, explained, or neatly categorized. His mission is internal, understanding himself, refining his own character, and building his life on principles that don't require applause. You won't find him in debates trying to prove his point, nor will you hear him begging for someone to believe in his vision. He's not driven by the need to be seen. He's driven by the need to be real. Psychologically, this is rooted in high intrapersonal intelligence, a term coined by developmental psychologist Howard Gardner, describing individuals who possess a deep awareness of their inner emotional life and motivations. Sigmas embrace this self-awareness with calm precision. They don't shout their truth, they embody it. And that's the catch. Real truth doesn't scream for attention, it doesn't need to convince, it simply exists quietly, like a mountain in the distance. The Sigma male mirrors that stillness. His power lies in presence, not persuasion. Let people talk. Let them speculate, gossip, label, or misunderstand him. It doesn't matter. While they're trying to decode his silence or pick apart his decisions, he's already a few moves ahead, evolving, pivoting, and thriving without explanation. Sociologists might call him an intentional outsider, someone who chooses solitude not from rejection but from clarity. That's why Sigma males often seem detached. They're not emotionally absent, they're emotionally disciplined. They refuse to waste energy where none is needed. If he walks away from an argument, it's not because he's weak, it's because he knows the battlefield isn't worth the war. In a world obsessed with noise, the Sigma male is fluent in silence. And in that silence, he finds something most never do: peace, purpose, and power. So no, he doesn't need you to get him. He's not waiting for that. He's already gone, chasing something bigger than attention: truth, growth, and legacy. Number 6, he values precision over perfection. The Sigma male doesn't waste time chasing perfection because he knows it doesn't exist. In a world obsessed with flawless outcomes and polished appearances, the Sigma sees through the illusion. Perfection to him is a myth, a socially engineered trap designed to keep capable men stuck in endless preparation, doubt, and delay. He understands that perfection is a moving target, and those who chase it often end up standing still. Instead, the Sigma chooses effectiveness. He values results over aesthetics, progress over paralysis. His focus is on what works, not what looks good on paper. This mindset is rooted in a practical, almost scientific approach to life. Psychologists have long recognized the difference between perfectionism and high achievement. While perfectionists often fear failure and procrastinate, high achievers, like the Sigma, set realistic goals and move forward with purpose, even if the path is messy. The Sigma isn't careless, though. Every move he makes is calculated. His choices are measured, not impulsive. He applies a principle similar to the 80-20th rule, also known as the Pareto principle, which states that 80% of outcomes come from 20% of efforts. He identifies the essential 20% that brings the most return and focuses his energy there. That's why he doesn't waste time obsessing over the small details that have little impact. Even when he makes mistakes, he sees them as data points, not failures. To him, errors are not setbacks, but feedback loops that sharpen his precision. It's a deliberate process of refinement, like a sculptor removing excess stone to reveal the form within. Each mistake gives him a clearer sense of what works and what doesn't. This is what separates the Sigma from others. He doesn't fear imperfection, he harnesses it. Because while perfection paralyzes the masses, precision builds the Sigma's empire, one intentional decision at a time. In a society where many are stuck tweaking, editing, revising, and waiting for the perfect moment, the Sigma is already 10 steps ahead, not because he's reckless, but because he knows that clarity emerges from action, not overthinking. His life is a series of purposeful movements, not endless rehearsals. And that is where his power lies, not in flawless execution, but in flawless direction. By pursuing effectiveness over perfection, the Sigma becomes the kind of man who builds, adapts, and rises, while others remain frozen in the illusion of getting it just right. Number 7, he builds quiet power. Power isn't always loud. It doesn't always roar through dominance or demand attention in a crowded room. Sometimes real power walks in quietly, says nothing, and still changes the entire atmosphere. This is the kind of power the Sigma male embodies, a power rooted not in bravado but in self-restraint. In a world that praises overreaction, the Sigma remains still. While others feel the need to clap back, to prove themselves, or to win every argument, the Sigma male understands that silence can be the sharpest sword. Neuroscience even supports this. Studies show that people who can manage their emotional responses, particularly in stressful situations, have higher emotional intelligence, which is directly linked to better decision-making, leadership, and long-term success. The Sigma has mastered this. He doesn't react because he doesn't need validation. His power is in the pause, in the ability to choose not to respond, to walk away without a word, and to never look back. It's not that he's weak or incapable. It's that he's evolved past the need to engage in meaningless power plays. Unlike the Alpha, who thrives on control, or the Beta, who seeks approval, the Sigma seeks peace. And ironically, that makes him more powerful than both. His life isn't a stage show, but a blueprint for quiet mastery. You won't see him flaunting wins on social media, but his results speak volumes. Through the businesses he builds, the lives he impacts, and the calm certainty that follows him. When you cross paths with a Sigma male, you won't remember what he wore or even what he said. What you'll remember is how his calm presence made you feel. There's no need for showmanship because his energy says everything. That's not arrogance. It's alignment. Alignment with his purpose, his values, and his inner code. True alignment eliminates the need for external validation. It silences the noise of insecurity and replaces it with clarity. And in that clarity, the Sigma male becomes untouchable, not because he's the loudest, but because he's the most grounded. His silence is not emptiness. It's control. His calm is not weakness. It's awareness. And his restraint is not submission. It's power refined. The Sigma male doesn't just walk away from conflict. He rises above it. And that is the kind of power that doesn't need to shout to be felt. It's simply number 8. He doesn't fear being misunderstood. Most people go through life trying to fit in, fearing rejection like it's a death sentence. The need to be liked, understood, and accepted by others is deeply wired into human psychology. But the Sigma male, he operates on an entirely different frequency. While others shrink at the idea of being misjudged or misunderstood, the Sigma thrives in it. Misunderstanding for him is not a curse. It's camouflage. It protects his mission. It keeps him hidden from unnecessary attention, from social obligations that drain his energy, and from the expectations that chain most people to a version of themselves they don't even recognize. He doesn't crave validation because he understands something powerful. Most people are projecting, not perceiving. So when the world slaps a label on him, cold, distant, arrogant, he doesn't flinch, he doesn't explain. Why? Because explanation is an invitation, and he's not looking to be invited into their boxes. Sigmas are deeply introspective by nature, often driven by internal compasses that don't require applause or applause meters. Psychology even points to this mindset as a form of self-determined motivation, where purpose is driven from within, not from external rewards or recognition. The Sigma walks his path silently, often misunderstood, but completely aligned with who he is. And paradoxically, that very detachment makes him unforgettable. People may not understand him, but they can't stop thinking about him. There's a mystery to him that lingers, a calmness that unnerves, and a confidence that speaks without words. He doesn't need the world to walk with him. He just needs room to walk alone. And that's exactly what makes his presence so rare, so powerful, and so impossible to ignore. Becoming untouchable isn't about shutting down emotions. It's about sharpening your clarity. A Sigma male isn't numb. He's intentional. He knows his values, guards his peace, and walks a path few dare to follow. While the world scrambles for attention and overreacts to every slight, the Sigma remains still, mastering self over chaos. This stillness isn't weakness, it's power. In psychological terms, this self-regulation builds resilience, calm, and focus. By conquering himself, the Sigma becomes both invisible to nonsense and unforgettable to the wise. He warned you with his silence. You thought he was passive, until the silence turned into a storm. When a Sigma goes full savage, he doesn't raise his voice, he raises the stakes. Welcome to Brain Boosters, where noise dies and clarity speaks. The Sigma male walks through life like a shadow with weight, quiet, focused, and calculated. He's not in your face, not seeking attention, but his presence is undeniable. Unlike alpha males who dominate the room, or betas who follow the crowd, the Sigma doesn't play the game at all. He rewrites the rules. He operates on a frequency that's invisible to most, but impossible to ignore once triggered. He doesn't thrive on drama or chaos, but when pushed to his limits, he transforms into something unrecognizable, cold, precise, and unrelenting. It's not about shouting matches or emotional outbursts, it's about control of the situation, of the outcome, and most importantly, of himself. In psychological terms, Sigmas exhibit high levels of intrapersonal intelligence and emotional regulation. This allows them to assess threats, betrayals, or manipulations with stoic clarity and respond in ways that are swift, final, and often shocking. Going full savage mode doesn't mean he becomes violent. It means he enforces boundaries with surgical accuracy. He may cut off a manipulative friend without a word, dismantle toxic relationships like removing bad code from his life script, or walk away from situations most men cling to. Why? Because a Sigma male is not afraid of solitude, nor is he attached to validation. His silence is not weakness, it's observation. And when he acts, it's not for applause, it's for alignment. When the world pushes, the Sigma doesn't push back. He disappears, recalculates, and returns not to prove a point, but to prove he never needed to. This is what happens when the man who never needed the world decides to show the world why. This is what happens when a Sigma male goes full savage mode. Number 1, the world he walks in. The modern world is built on volume. Likes, views, followers, trends. The louder someone is, the more they're rewarded. In this age of constant noise, where people shout to be heard and post to be validated, the Sigma male moves in the opposite direction. He thrives in silence, not because he lacks power, but because he understands it. While society runs in circles chasing approval, the Sigma male operates from the sidelines, not out of fear or insecurity, but from a place of quiet mastery. His detachment isn't a flaw, it's a form of wisdom. In psychology, emotional detachment can be a healthy coping mechanism. It allows one to remain grounded, rational, and unaffected by the chaos of others. The Sigma doesn't avoid the world. He studies it. He sees the illusion of popularity, the shallowness of trends, the emptiness of attention-seeking. Society often mistakes his silence for submission. They assume if he isn't playing the power games, he must be powerless, but that's where they're wrong. His silence is not compliance, it's calculation. Detachment for the Sigma is not indifference, it's protection. He doesn't follow the crowd because he understands where the crowd is being led into distraction, conformity, and mediocrity. But when society pushes too far, when betrayal, disrespect, or manipulation crosses inner threshold, he doesn't react like the average man. He doesn't explode, post a rant, or seek petty revenge. He simply makes a move. Swift, cold, decisive. That's when the silent observer becomes the silent executor. He doesn't act out of emotion, he acts with intention. This trait mirrors the strategic temperament of a chess master, always several moves ahead, never revealing his plan until it's too late. He's not interested in revenge, he's interested in correction. That might mean removing people from his life, changing direction without explanation, or cutting ties with systems that no longer serve him. It's not drama, it's discipline. And discipline in its truest form is a kind of quiet strength. The Sigma male understands that sometimes the loudest message is spoken through action, not words. In a world obsessed with being seen, he chooses to be effective. While others burn themselves out trying to fit in or rise up the social ladder, the Sigma quietly builds a life on his own terms, unshaken, unnoticed, and ultimately undeniable. Number 2, the core within. The Sigma male's mind is a fortress, unyielding, impenetrable, and carved from years of solitude, silent reflection, and relentless self-discipline. He wasn't born this way. Life forged him. Every rejection didn't break him, it reinforced his inner walls. Every setback wasn't a failure, it was a sharpening stone. While others seek validation through noise, the Sigma male thrives in silence. When he goes savage, it's not a reckless outburst or emotional meltdown. It's a precise, controlled withdrawal, a cold, calculated removal of tolerance for nonsense, betrayal, or disrespect. He doesn't yell to prove his point, he exits, and when he leaves, he takes with him his energy, his loyalty, and the rare value he brought to the table. You don't get a second plea for loyalty from him. He doesn't negotiate with disloyalty. He replaces it with silence, a language that speaks louder than any confrontation. Psychologically, Sigmas often rank high in traits such as introversion, emotional independence, and strategic thinking, qualities linked to the INTJ or ISTP personality types in the Myers-Briggs system. They're not emotionally detached, but emotionally efficient. Emotion isn't a weakness in their world. It's a tool used sparingly, wisely. And when a Sigma enters savage mode, it's not vengeance, it's clarity. He strips away distractions, fake friendships, shallow drama, and everything that doesn't serve his purpose. It's minimalist masculinity at its peak. What aligns with his mission remains. What doesn't vanishes without fanfare. His coldness isn't cruelty, it's the consequence of misplaced trust. He was warm once, open, kind, even vulnerable, but some warmed their hands at his fire, only to set that same flame against him. That betrayal didn't ruin him, it refined him. Now the fire still burns, but behind stone walls and a watchful gatekeeper. Inside, he isn't bitter. He's simply done. Done with people who only show up when they need him. Done explaining himself to those who never cared to understand. Done offering parts of himself to those who only wanted to take. The savage Sigma isn't dangerous because he's angry, he's dangerous because he's clear. And when a man becomes that clear about who he is and what he will no longer accept, he becomes unstoppable. His silence becomes a boundary, his absence becomes a message. His focus becomes lethal. This isn't about revenge, it's about evolution. Number 3, the clash of worlds. The savage Sigma male doesn't explode, he evaporates. In a world obsessed with noise, dominance, and attention, the Sigma operates differently, silently, strategically, and with unnerving calm. When he withdraws, it's not to provoke a reaction, but to protect his energy. And in that cold retreat, the entire social dynamic begins to unravel. The alpha, who thrives on challenges and chest-thumping confrontation, is left baffled by the Sigma's sheer indifference. He sees the lack of response not as neutrality, but as a challenge to his dominance. The beta, reliant on affirmation and social approval, feels invisible and unworthy. Manipulators, those who rely on emotional bait, are left exposed when the Sigma refuses to play. And women who thought emotional games gave them leverage suddenly find themselves staring into an emotional abyss. The Sigma doesn't argue, shout, or slam doors. He simply vanishes, and his silence is deafening. That disappearance isn't a tantrum, it's a boundary, a permanent one. Psychologically, this behavior ties closely to what's known as or methods often used by those who have mastered emotional regulation. Sigma males by nature are introspective and self-reliant. They don't react impulsively, they calculate. Cutting someone off isn't an act of anger, but of self-respect. He isn't punishing you, he's protecting himself. And once he decides that someone has violated his core values or disrespected his essence, there's no warning shot. He's just gone, emotionally detached, spiritually distant, mentally unreachable. This isn't a power move, it's a survival instinct. When a Sigma enters savage mode, his usual quiet strength turns impenetrable. His boundaries aren't drawn in sand, they're carved in stone. And if you try to cross them, you'll find yourself alone, facing a version of him you never saw coming. The truth is, he doesn't need to destroy anyone. He lets their own actions do the work. The Sigma male knows this. Real power isn't in dominating others, but in mastering oneself. And once he's done with you, there's no comeback story, not because he hates you, but because he loves his peace more than your presence. That's the silent savagery of a Sigma male. Number 4, the rise of the lone wolf. Savage mode isn't chaos, it's clarity. It's not about rage, revenge, or emotional retaliation. For the Sigma male, going savage doesn't mean becoming unhinged, it means becoming unstoppable. While the world expects fireworks, noise, and dramatic displays of defiance, the Sigma takes a different route. He doesn't explode, he evolves. When life throws its harshest punches, others might rant, crumble, or seek attention. But the Sigma channels that storm inward, converting every wound into fuel. He hits the gym with a vengeance, not to show off, but to sharpen his mind-body connection. He disappears into books, business strategies, and self-discipline, not for applause, but for precision. He upgrades silently because he understands something most don't. The loudest man in the room is usually the weakest. The Sigma doesn't flaunt progress, he it. Every rejection, betrayal, or setback becomes a stepping stone. He doesn't post his grind on social media. He doesn't need cheers, likes, or validation. What he becomes in private, the world eventually cannot ignore. This is the essence of savage mode, the ruthless commitment to mastery without needing recognition. Psychology supports this mindset. Studies show that intrinsic motivation, the drive that comes from within, leads to more sustained success, than chasing external approval. In savage mode, the Sigma doesn't seek to destroy others, that's too easy. He aims higher, to destroy every limit placed on him by fear, society, and self-doubt. And when he breaks those chains, he gains the rarest kind of freedom. Not freedom responsibility, but freedom. He no longer needs the world's validation, affection, or permission. That is true power. It's not about vengeance. It's not about proving others wrong. It's about victory, earned in silence, sealed in solitude. That's what makes the Sigma's savage mode terrifyingly beautiful. Not the chaos he causes, but the order he forges in himself. He becomes the man no one can control, no one can break, and no one can replace. And number 5, the precision of his strike. The savage Sigma doesn't throw punches, he throws outcomes. He's not interested in theatrics or emotional outbursts. Every move he makes is calculated, quiet, and precise, like a master strategist in a chess game, already 10 steps ahead before his opponent even realizes the game has begun. The Sigma male operates on an internal code built on self-respect, independence, and clarity. When he's disrespected or betrayed, he doesn't explode, he exposes. He doesn't lash out to prove a point, he simply lets the truth unveil itself. A liar's narrative begins to unravel, a manipulator's strings snap, a fake friend's mask slips, and the Sigma watches, detached yet aware, as everything falls into place exactly as he predicted. He doesn't need a spotlight to get even, his silence is louder than any confrontation. If you missed the warning signs, that was your mistake. The first sign was silence, an uncomfortable quiet that speaks volumes. The second was distance, both emotional and physical. And the third was disappearance, his complete withdrawal from your life like you were never there. This isn't drama, it's design. Sigma males don't give second chances after the line is crossed. And when they walk away, it's not to punish you, it's to protect their peace. There's no yelling, no social media rants, and no dramatic speeches. There's only absence. And in that absence lies a powerful message. You are never indispensable. You don't get a return ticket. When a Sigma leaves, he doesn't leave scars. He leaves lessons etched into your memory, not with pain, but with impact. Psychologically, this kind of response aligns with the traits of high self-differentiation, a concept in emotional intelligence where a person can remain calm and maintain their values under pressure. The Sigma's detachment isn't cold, it's controlled. It's a sign of emotional discipline, not emotional absence. In a world that rewards loud gestures, the Sigma male's power comes from his restraint. His revenge is not loud, messy, or public, it's permanent. Because for a Sigma, the ultimate victory isn't in defeating someone, it's in walking away unaffected, leaving the other person to confront their own actions. That's what makes him dangerous, not his wrath, but his refusal to engage in anything beneath him. When he cuts ties, it's surgical, clean, final, and unforgettable. Number 6, the weapon of indifference. People expect anger. They expect shouting, slamming doors, wild arguments, and emotional explosions. That's the script they know, the chaos they crave. But what throws them off, what truly shocks and disarms them, is indifference. That cold silence, that calm stare, that complete emotional detachment. It's not weakness, it's strategy. It's the Sigma male at his most dangerous. While most people react impulsively when provoked, the Sigma operates from a place of inner stillness. His greatest act of power isn't vengeance, it's neutrality. He doesn't let other people's drama penetrate his peace. You insult him, he doesn't retaliate, he observes. You betray him, he doesn't lash out. He nods, lets go, and disappears. You try to push his buttons, hoping for a reaction, but get only stillness in return. That's what makes him savage. Psychology confirms this behavior as a sign of high emotional intelligence, the ability to self-regulate, to delay gratification, and to detach from toxic patterns is the foundation of stoic strength. The Sigma male has mastered this. He's not emotionless, he just doesn't allow emotions to dominate him. His validation doesn't come from external approval. He's self-anchored, rooted in personal values and internal goals. This is not only rare, it's threatening to those who rely on manipulation, guilt, or chaos to control others. When a Sigma doesn't engage, it strips their power away. He becomes immune to drama, toxic cycles, and emotional traps. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. In fact, neuroscientists have found that people who cultivate calm under pressure activate areas of the brain associated with focus and long-term decision-making rather than fight or flight. So when the Sigma male refuses to feed the fire, he's not suppressing emotion, he's channeling it. That's why he's untouchable. He can feel everything but chooses to act on almost nothing. This restraint isn't weakness, it's dominance. The loudest man in the room may appear powerful, but the quiet one who doesn't flinch, he owns the room. And in that silence, in that composed smile after betrayal, the Sigma male communicates something that words never could. You don't control me, you never did. Number 7, the exile becomes a throne. When a Sigma male vanishes, people often assume he's running from something. But the truth is, he's not hiding, he's ascending. Solitude is his sanctuary, his forge, where the raw material of thought is shaped into something sharper and stronger. When the world becomes too noisy with gossip, too fake with shallow validation, or too hostile with constant judgment, the Sigma doesn't retaliate. He retreats into silence. But this isn't a retreat of weakness. It's a strategic withdrawal, like a warrior sharpening his sword in the dark. Science shows that solitude isn't harmful when chosen. It enhances creativity, boosts mental clarity, and fosters emotional regulation. And Sigma males understand this instinctively. While the masses are caught in an endless scroll of distraction and dopamine hits, he's resetting his inner compass. He's reflecting on his next mission. He's redefining his goals. It could be a shift in financial strategy, a personal transformation, or a deeper spiritual alignment. His solitude becomes the launch pad for reinvention. And by the time people start to wonder where he's gone, it's too late. He's already miles ahead, mentally sharper, emotionally balanced, and often financially upgraded. Studies in behavioral psychology even suggest that intentional isolation can enhance focus and goal attainment, traits Sigma males use to stay ahead of the curve. He doesn't need to announce his transformation.